Okay, good day guys. This is the follow-up video, part 2 of the Arduino Uno and managing the fuel pump regulation and all that. So we're just going to jump right into it, how this bit differs from the bench test. So this is now the first test. We first tried to put it at the front of the car. That didn't work so well because you got all that heat and that electronic sensors happening in vibrations on the engine bay. So we moved it to the rear of the vehicle. So yeah, okay, we're just gonna basically jump right into this. So we've got to connect it to our laptop. This is the tuning pot that we used. We've got a fuse. This is our Arduino Uno. It's currently in a fuse box. Oh, not a fuse box, I'm talking nonsense. Just a normal casing. Keeps everything. We got our BTS 7960 connected to that. Some of the wires here are not exactly up to spec. Like I say, this is only for testing. We need to ensure that this works first before we do all the trouble of putting the wires in, getting everything installed, and make sure that it can actually do what we want it to do. So what we've basically done here is we've now replaced our sensor here with the pinouts. Red is voltage, black is ground, brown is signal, and this white one here, that's the voltage for the VCC high pin, and then black is obviously ground. And then we're using red and brown on this side for our pulse width modulation, and then yellow and orange is our REN LEN. So that's basically saying power to this module, power to that module, and the pulse width is like how fast that models can be activating. And we have a 30 amp fuse there for the fuel pump. So make sure that we don't have this. So we're going to put this fuse in here. Not the most pretty looking of setups, but like I say, we're not done with the full setup and that. Let me just get this fuse in here, and then we will be able to run it from there. Right, so we're going to take this out when we're done. We're not going to work with the wires if they're live and do installations and that. So yeah, we've got red as positive here. This is actually our negative, funny enough, and this is positive, which if you look at the circuit board there is incorrect, which is like I'm saying, I just had these wires. I'm not going to cut up a whole bunch of wires just to do a test, but ideally you want to ensure that your polarities here are correct, otherwise you will blow up this BTS board. Right, so first of all, let's have a look at our code running here. Right, so we had a bit of a test here. Just want to show you guys I did revise the code just a little bit. So we have let's have a look at our code here. So there we have the pins. To get that you guys can see it on the screen. So just a little comment there. It says R plus L pulse width modulation, pin 11 and pin 10, and then R and L power. We said pin 8 and pin 9. I did change that from 12 and 13 to 8 and 9. It just looks a little bit neater. And then the regulator pin. So this is what's going to be the input, which you're going to be using to determine what our pump speed is going to be running at. Okay, then here we got the setup. So we got for a for loop, we're running pin mode I, and then the output. So that's going to be outputting the pulse modulation, and then that's going to be the digital write I, and then basically the low, and then the 9600 that you got to have in there. Right, so let's move on to the loop. Scrolling down here. Okay, so we have here the starter pump. I put a little comment there so that I know what I'm doing. So we're putting a print and just say, hey, you know what, the motor's starting up. We're going to write REN and LEN because I need to know if it's running clockwise or counterclockwise. You can set the one to low if you want to. Personally, I just leave it on high. It just runs better and makes no difference. Then for loop, we have the value of I, which is going to be our loop. So we're going to have run a cycle, and then we're going to check the sensor, and then run a cycle, and then check the sensor, and run a cycle, and check the sensor. So that's how it's going to check how the pressure is, and then adjust the pump speed according to that. Then the pump doesn't really run. So we did a test on this, and below 50 it basically gives the issue where the car is not going to run that well. So I said change the if to if I is less than or equal to 50, we're going to make the fuel pump speed run at 50. So we're not going to be getting in a condition where the pump basically switch off and just humming and not supplying enough fuel. You guys will see why that is a thing we need later on. And then FPS is going to be the fuel pump speed. We're going to read what the fuel pump voltage is. Fuel pressure voltage. So fuel pressure voltage is what's going to come in, but it's going to come in a bit rate of between 0 and 1 to 100 and 102, yeah, 512, so 1048, I think. Or we're mapping to 1023 to 255, and then there's a little comment here that says this is where you activate the pump. So we're going to run LPWM and then FPS. So FPS is going to be how much pulse width we're going to give it. So in case you ever want to change the pump direction, instead of having to rewire all of these wires and run it through the car and everything, all you do is you just change that later from L to R and you run it. Another reason why we are leaving these on high is we're first going to determine the direction. And then here we just have some feedback because we want to know, like, what is our feedback, what is I, what is FPS, what is supposed to be, so we can work from there. And then, okay, so this last one here, the delay we're going to use here is basically like a refresh rate. So we can run this all the way up until 10 milliseconds. We can even do 1 millisecond. But given the system, the fuel and the pressures and everything, 100 milliseconds is just fine. So I'm actually going to change this to... let's make this 1 second, so that's 1000 milliseconds, and we're going to be running that on the loop, and I'm just going to show you guys how that's going to go. Okay, right, so now we've connected up everything. Let's just, for demonstration purposes, we can remove the red and black on here, right, and the brown for signal, and we're going to reinstall our little pin here. We're going to reinstall that into pin 8 and 6. I just want to make sure the center one is white, which is the signal, which goes to A1. Let's have a look there. That's A1, right? So this is gonna give us our fuel pump. Now let's quickly go to the front of the car, and I'll show you guys basically what I did here. Yeah, so I might have cut off my words there a little bit. So basically, here is our fuel pressure sensor. It is a 3-pin, so we have 5 volts coming in, ground on the other side, and one's going to be our signal, which we have marked as red. Is going to be purple. This focus on this camera is just horrible. Sorry, guys. So red is going to be purple coming in here, blue is going to be our signal, and then black and white is going to be our ground. So we're going to send out voltage in here, it's going to go back there, and it's going to give us a signal like there. You can use a similar thing for a radiator fan, fuel pump, like we said. I suppose you can use the aircon like this as well if you want to run like an aircon pump on different settings. So keep in mind, being a TFSI, this is the low fuel pressure sensor, and this is the fuel pressure regulator for the high pressure pump. That gets a bit hectic, but you can also run this off here. It basically has a little sensor in there that does it. Not sensor, a little type of this part here is a solenoid, and it has like a little piston there that works on the solenoid. And I'm not sure if it pulsates or it just works on the displacement, like how far the pin is down, if we just taps the whole time. But that's basically, you can run the same thing off there. But that system works, it's not broken, don't fix it. We're just going to focus on the low pressure side of things. Yeah, so we're going to look at the inside of the car of why exactly we are doing this whole operation and what's the point of what we are doing here. Okay, so given back here on the testing of things, keep in mind this is test setup. We haven't put the final plugs on, haven't put the final connectors on. I would never run a car like this for a client. You're going to get proper plugs like these that is going to be incorporated with, because you have all your fuel pressure gauges on there, and you guys see when you start up the vehicle, it's not going to show our fuel level. Because of the long and the short is that this little plug here is not working, so it can't refresh the fuel fast enough for what we need in our application. So basically what's happening is the fuel spikes and comes down, spikes and comes down, spikes and comes, and it just can't regulate the pressure fast enough for the tune that's currently on the vehicle. So we're going, and like I said, we have a 340 liter upgraded pump here, which is about 300% more than the factory spec. So yeah, it can actually throw a lot of fuel through there, right? And then obviously we have our shielded cable here. This is our sensor wire. It is shielded on the inside, so we can ensure that the signal we're getting is going to be good in terms of that. So like I say, we run this to the back of the vehicle. This is going to be tucked up behind the car plates, like in the panels and through the doors. So if you're going to be driving, you're not going to see this, and if you were to step on it or something, it will be durable and you won't really have all those many dangers of accidentally earthing against the body or things like that. Right, so let's go back to the Arduino. Alright, and we are back this side. So now we have our pot set connected in here. If I can just film it, it'll be great. We have our pin set in there, that BTS, so everything's checked in. We have our fuse in, and now we're going to plug this guy in. Now it doesn't always give me the serial. Let's get that going. clear output. And now we're going to plug this guy in. And let's see if it... So it immediately starts activating as it comes in, but you see I'm not getting any output. Now I'm going to want some outputs on this because I need to determine like what's the lowest the fuel pump needs to run for the vehicle to basically run. So I'm going to pull it out, plug it back in. That normally works. I don't know what the correct procedure is of that, but yeah, it's giving me COM port issues again. So if I like upload, it just says COM port issue. So we're going to unplug it again, plug it back in. If it doesn't work, just switch it on and off. Let's see if that code uploads now. Now keep in mind we have changed the delay time. Yeah, there we go. Now we had to upload there. It resets. Motor start. Right. So you'll see there's a 1 there and then 174. Now let's just clear this output. Now as I'm gonna tune this guy here, look at, I'm gonna turn this one here. Now look at how that input is changing. Now with the delay time that's lower, you guys can hear the fuel pump. Zing, zing, zing. I don't know if you guys can hear that on the camera, but that's because the delay time is lower, right? So let's get it back to like 170, around about there. So we're just gonna change this here again. Take out a 0 down there at the delay time, and we're gonna re-upload this to the Arduino. Uploading. Upload complete, serial up, motor start, and look at that refresh time we have now. So now we have a much faster refresh time than normal. If you guys can hear it, crank it all the way up to 224, all the way down there, right back up. Okay, so now we have our input signal. So we're going to start the vehicle now and have a look at what she sounds like. Okay, give her like a switch on there. And she's running. So she's a little bit loud. Handbrake is up, car's in park. We're going to get a bunch of, because we now unplug sensors and everything. So let's have a look at the back on how the fuel is running. Okay, we're just going to let the car get to like a proper temperature. A little bit loud. It's got big exhaust on it. When the car is basically up to spec, we're gonna lower this down. Oh, that's up. Let's lower it down, and you hear there it's starting to idle rough. You want to get it back up there. So about 150. That's the minimum we want to be running this at. If any lower, she starts giving headaches. So yeah, she's starting to reach operating temp now. She's starting to calm down. So if you guys basically go up to 150, so we said what about 150 is where she's going to start giving us headaches, fuel starvation, like a little bit of a sputter, and that's what you're looking for. And when she's already running, let's get her to like reach operating temp properly, right? You can even take this guy all the way down, all the way out. We got as low as 50. Let's see how low she goes before she starts giving us headaches again. Right, down is 100, 98, 95. I'm slowly taking it. I don't want to spike it. Slowly taking it down. I want to show you guys what that if statement does that we did here. So we're almost at 50 now. So let's say, as we need to remind you, we've got a serial print line of I, serial print line of FPS. So as this goes below 50, watch what happens. I think I set it to 30 actually. It's going to go all the way down. Or did I print out FPS? Yeah, so there she's like, oh, there, she died. So I put her too low. So actually, I made a little bit of a mistake in my code here, right? So FPS does not equal 50. I equals 50, right? And we're going to re-upload that. It's actually good. There's a little bug in our code there. So let's start her up again and see what she does. Okay, alright, let's try this again, right? So we're going to take it back down. So what should happen is that FPS should drop below 50, but we say if I is less than 50, it's going to be 50. So we're going to look at that again. That's up. We're going to knock it back down all the way down, down and down and down and down and down, 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 down. And now if you get below 50, it should still keep the fuel at 50. Does it work? Right, now check there. You still have a 50 there. So even though the fuel is going low, okay, I'm just bring it back up because she doesn't want to run that low. So we run about 150 is where we said we want it to be on idle. That's good enough fuel for what we want. Set that there to about 150, one about there. And then that's basically going to run it. So if it goes below the pressure that we need, it's going to bring it back to a motor speed that won't stall the vehicle. Right. So now we're going to take off our tuning pot. We're going to switch the car off, take off our tuning pot, and we're going to install the sensor, and we're going to look at what it says there. Okay, right, so we're going to pull out the blue and green, and the white as reference. And we set our wiring: red is voltage, brown is ground, black is ground, what am I saying? Black and red. There we go. And signal is on a 1. Make sure that's nice and in there. In there. I don't think that pin is in properly. Let's trying to do this one hand. There we go. Got the pins in. Oh, and my battery was going flat. Kind of running out of power here, so my flash is gone. Get that on pin A1. Just want to show you guys. So basically, the Arduino is going to send out a 5-volt signal. It's going to get back a reference signal, which is brown, which is A1. And let's connect it back up. See what she does. Right, there we go. She's powering up. Let's see if we get a serial here. Serial is not serialing. But I think we might have a possible bug in our code here. Let's just get this guy in to give us a read. So let's clear this output. Clear output. And let's see if we get a COM signal on this. Should be around about the 200s, around about there. Still nothing. And it doesn't want to work now. Let's see if it wants to upload that again. Upload that. Yeah, it still doesn't see the board. Fun little things. Does it read me now? You can hear the Arduino. Oh, there we go. Right. So now we've got a serial input. And there you can see it's running at 50 now. It is probably going to be a little bit low to start her up, but we are going to be getting up a signal for that as the fuel pressure basically picks up. So we want to get the pump to run. So we can now change this value here, this if now to 150, and change that to 150, because we know below 150 she does kind of sputter a bit. Alright, we're going to upload that. Motor stops. Motor runs. I is 150. I've got the 1 there. 150. Right. And upload. It's going to bring it up on our serial. And there's our 150. Right. So let's start the vehicle and see how she runs. Right. So we can hear the pump sing at the back. We're going to give her a start up. There she goes. Just like that. Let's go have a look at the back again, and there you can see it. We're actually sitting in the 190s. 190s run about there across the board. So what's going to happen is, as it basically needs more fuel, this is going to send out a bigger signal, and we're going to get more fuel coming through. If it needs less fuel, it's going to send out a lower signal. So if it doesn't do that, what you would basically do is you go to your code here. Where's the FPS with the for loop? Let's have a look here. My battery is dying, so I don't want to spend too much time here. So in high FPS, okay, so that FPS, you see there's little brackets around it. So you would basically have 255 minus the FPS. So you want to get the inverted value of that. So if the pressure goes higher, you want to have less fuel coming through. If the pressure goes lower, you want more fuel coming through. So that's going to be one way to do it, to run all that. Okay guys, that's going to wrap it up for this video. We are going to be working a little bit of this, making this all neat. Tuck it into the body so it doesn't show this ugly wire sitting on the front here. So this can be like our sensor wires for our shields and things. We're going to get a nice plug for this. I don't like doing the pins. I want to have a proper plug on there, because if this comes out, your car's going to die and you won't know why. So we're going to get this off nice and tidy. Not sure if we're going to make a part 3 on this, because it's just basically tucking things under a carpet and not really that much to look at. But this is basically the practical of how we basically run it, where we first determine what is the lowest fuel pressure it needs. We determine what is the essential input that we need, and if we take it to the lowest point, is the car still going to run? Okay guys, so I'm going to wrap it up now. Battery's going. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next one, and drive safe.